So if you're looking for a video on how to wrap your motorcycle pipes, then you've come to the right place. This is my motorbike and these are the pipes that I've recently wrapped. Now, I've had plenty of experience, let me tell you. I made a video about 4 or 5 years ago in which I attempted to show people how to wrap their pipes, and it went so horribly wrong, I actually made the video into a how not to wrap your pipes video. So 5 years later, I think I've perfected the technique. So if you want to know how to get a result like this on your bike, stick around and I'll show you the tools you need and how to get this perfectly beautiful wrap on your pipes. So let's get started. So these are the pipes on my motorcycle, and they're definitely due for a rewrap, mostly thanks to the neighbour's cat, who seems to think that these are his personal scratching post, but I doubt he'll make that same mistake again. You see, the wrap is made from some really tough stuff. Sometimes it's made from a mix of stuff like pulverised lava rock, ceramic fibres and fiberglass. Now that also means that it can also be pretty nasty to handle. Once it gets airborne or on the skin, those tiny fibres can feel like little glass splinters, so make sure that you're properly protected. Eye protection, a good pair of mechanic gloves and something to cover up the nose and mouth area is always a good idea. Now I just use a simple neck buff pulled up over my face, which is enough to keep those fibres out of my lungs. So the first thing you need is a bucket of lukewarm water, and we're going to soak our exhaust wrap in this before we start the job. Now I'm using a titanium heat wrap, and you can find this on a bunch of sites, but I'll leave a link in the description to one that I'm using. Now this one also comes with these handy metal zip ties which help to secure the wrap once it's on the pipes. Now what we need to do is, this is a 10-metre wrap, so I'm going to cut it in half. And now I'm going to drop those two halves into this bucket to allow it to soak for around 20 to 30 minutes. This helps in a couple of ways. First, it keeps those tiny fibres from flying around whilst we're working with it. And second of all, it makes the heat wrap more flexible. When it's wet, you can pull it tighter against the pipes and we get a cleaner, more secure wrap all the way round. So firstly, I like to give the bike a thorough wash. Now this gets rid of any dirt or grime that we don't want trapped under the new wrap, but it also helps to keep things safe whilst we're working. Now wetting the bike and any existing wrap that we may have stops those tiny fibres from getting airborne when we're removing the older material. Now those fibres, like I mentioned, can irritate your skin, your eyes and your lungs. So by wetting those fibres and wetting that wrap, it actually keeps everything a little bit safer and stops it from flying around. If the wrap's been on the bike for a while, it may also not peel off in one go. It can flake or stick in places, and again, having this wet makes it much easier and safer to handle. So on my street twin, you'll see that I've got these lower heat shields that make it look as though that there's a single pipe running straight from the engine down to the exhaust. But in reality, these are just covers. The actual pipes flow into the catalytic converter, or in my case, into my X-pipe. So it really is two separate pipes, with the heat shield giving the illusion that of one continuous piece. Now to remove it, all you need to do is loosen these two small hex bolts on these clamps. Now once they're slack, the heat shield simply pulls off. So at the top, you'll see I've got these black exhaust clamps. Now, when I last wrapped the bike, I purchased these brand new in black, but over time, they've started to look a little bit weathered. So whilst they're off the bike, it's a perfect opportunity to give them a quick respray. Now, you could replace them entirely, but these look like they're still in good shape. So they've just faded a little bit, and I'm going to give them a quick touch up. Now these clamps also help keep the wrap secure at the top, and they prevent any fraying, and they also hide the seams, and they give the whole setup a clean finished look. So next up, we remove these two 10mm bolts that hold the finned exhaust clamps. Now this is a really simple job, just undo the bolts and the clamps will come off in a scissor-like motion. These clamps not only help keep the pipe secure, but they also give the wrap a clean, seamless finish once everything's back in place. So when it comes to removing the old wrap, start by cutting off the small metal zip ties, and you can do this easily with a sharp pair of tin snips or wire cutters. As you unwrap the tape, try and keep it in one big bundle, as this helps to stop those loose fibres from flying around and keeps everything a lot cleaner and safer. Now once the wrap's off, take a moment to inspect and rub down the pipes, just make sure everything's looking okay, and it's an opportunity to remove any leftover discoloration. Now some people like to respray them or paint them with heat protection paint. Now, I'll talk more about that in the pros and cons a little bit later, but as you can see, my bike's 8 years old and these pipes are still in great shape. So the first step is to fold the top edge of the wrap over on itself, and this gives a clean edge and prevents any fraying. Next, what I like to do is take a look at the tape. Now, I always notice that one side of the tape always seems to be neater than the other. And in this case, the right side looks a lot cleaner than the left. So this means that my right side is my top edge that I want facing out and visible, whilst the rougher edge will be the one that gets covered up as I go. Now, when I'm wrapping, I aim to overlap each turn by about half the width of the tape. This gives a consistent, even wrap all the way down the pipe. Keep the wrap tight as you go. Now, I like to secure the first turn at the top with a plastic zip tie. That keeps it from slipping whilst I work. Then as I wrap, I pull the tape firmly and I continue to twist the pipe at the same time, which keeps a steady tension to make sure that it's tight and uniform from top to bottom. Now it's time to secure the wrap with the metal zip ties. I start at the top, tightening the first tie to hold everything in place, and then I refit those finned exhaust clamps to hold everything in place. I now finish at the bottom, and I wrap the tape twice around the bottom of the pipe, which gives me enough leverage for extra tight grip and pulling everything in tight. I then cut the tape and fold the edge over for that clean finish. Since there's no clamp at the bottom, I use 2 metal zip ties to lock everything in place. I'll get an extra tight grip by using a pair of pliers and a pair of long nose pliers to pull them nice and tight. I trim off any excess with wire cutters, and then I twist those tie ends in the same direction as the wrap to keep everything snug and tidy looking for a professional clean finish. Before putting the lower heat shields back on, I like to apply some high temperature bearing grease to the screw threads. This keeps everything lubricated and makes future removal much easier. It's also a good chance to give everything a clean, both inside the shields and around the bottom of the bike. Now, once that's done, I refit those black exhaust clamps, and after that short respray, they almost look brand new. Along with these metal zip ties, everything now looks clean, tidy, neat and professional. Now, the next thing we need to do is heat cure the exhaust wrap. This seals the wrap and ensures that it doesn't unravel, whilst also preventing it from soaking up moisture, oil and dirt. Heating the pipe sets the structural cords within the wrap, making the installation strong, rigid and durable. We do this by giving the bike a quick run, and you'll see the moisture evaporate from the tape. The tape also takes on a more golden colour, and you know it's fully cured. So let's talk about the pros and cons of heat wrapping your exhaust pipes. So for me, the pros include the way it looks. Aesthetically, I think this suits the style of my bike and it gives it a clean custom look, which is exactly what I'm after. The wrap also helps the pipes cool down faster, which means I can cover the bike sooner and protect it against the elements since it lives outside. It can help reduce the heat radiating from the pipes themselves, keeping nearby components or your legs a little bit cooler. And by keeping the exhaust gases hotter, there's an argument to say that it improves performance, as those hotter gases flow more efficiently through the system, although I'm not sure how much this affects the street twin. Now, it can also help protect certain areas of the pipes from things like scratches or minor surface damage and stuff flying off the road, since the pipes are actually wrapped. Now, some people like to spray the pipes with high temperature heat protection paint before they wrap them, which can also help preserve the metal underneath. Now, I don't do that, as I like the option to potentially return to the natural unpainted look if I ever wanted to. So let's get on to the cons. So the wrap can trap moisture if it gets wet, which over time may cause rust or corrosion on the pipes, especially if the bike's sitting without being used often. It can also be tricky to install correctly, especially keeping the tension and even getting that neat finish that I was talking about. Over time, the wrap can fray or wear, which may require more maintenance or replacement than if you was to just leave them stock. There's also an argument to say that those extra hot exhaust gases can actually affect the integrity of the exhaust pipes themselves over time and cause them to crack. As you can see, that hasn't been an issue with my bike, but that's not to say that it doesn't happen. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, you can do so by clicking the little button below. And if you click the bell icon, then that will keep you up to date with all the latest releases on the channel. All that's left for me to say is, in the meantime, safe riding, safe driving, happy adventures, and I'll see you in the next one.